Yeah, I've basically sacrificed my perfect life for children, Justin. Mark.
Okay, well, that explains it.
Hello, I'm Mark.
I'm Justin,
We're the J-Pops.
and we are attempting parenting in Japan. Welcome. Welcome to episode 4.
Nice. 4 done.
4 in the bag. Let's talk about what's coming up today. First of all, we've got a guest. This is our second guest, and it's our first ever true J-pop. Even more of a J-pop than you and me, because we are expectant parents
That's right.
in Japan. We got a guy who actually has kids, actually lives in Japan, and is kind of he's the ghost of Christmas future for us. He's what we're going to be living soon, and that is Casey, our good friend Casey Bean.
Nice.
You might also know him from his various other podcasts like Ishikawa Summit to Sea and the Bean Pod. So he's out there on the podcast scene, and he's an Ishikawa resident, and he will be walking us through what to expect in the next few months, in the next few years, the next decade or so of child rearing. So we got Casey coming up on the agenda.
Yeah. But first, we should go over some updates maybe and talk about some other issues we've had recently.
Yes, indeed. Where is your wife, Moe, in the pregnancy?
She's at 20 weeks and 3 days now. She's definitely showing more when she goes to work in the morning and tries to put on the coat. It's definitely getting tighter. And the baby is moving around a lot these days. Like, she's definitely getting kicked more than she was expecting.
Yeah, my wife is at 27 weeks, and so of course she's been noticing the active baby for a while now. My wife said something that she heard that I thought was interesting, and that's that, and I assume this is real. I think this is legit. But as the mother's like sort of active and moving around, that creates a kind of nice, gentle rocking sensation for the baby, who's in sort of this like jacuzzi atmosphere, like all warm, and then the motion, and then it's like rocking the child. And then when the mother lays down and things are still, that is when the baby becomes restless. So my wife has noticed that when she tries to go to sleep, the baby really starts to fire up and go wild.
And I think that's just getting us prepared for life when they come out.
Yeah, that's
from what I hear, that's what's going to happen on a nightly basis.
Yeah, that's a really good primer, I guess. The wisdom of the baby. So yeah, my wife is there again, like 7 weeks ahead of your wife on the pregnancy schedule, and so she has been dipping into the maternity clothes a lot more these days, and it's pretty cool.
So is my wife.
Yeah. I don't know how your wife goes about her clothes shopping, but my wife, for a few years now, she's been a member of this or that service where you sort of every month, or I don't know the timeline, but you choose the clothes that you want and they send them to your house, and then you send the other clothes back. That sort of a service. It's like subscription clothes service.
I've heard about that. Isn't that mostly business clothes?
I guess she gets kind of nicer stuff to wear to work, but just anything that looks interesting to her, she'll get it delivered. So we've got constant clothes deliveries coming and going to the house. And when maternity time kicked in, that really proved its value, because it's obviously clothes that you need in the short term. And she just, switched over to their maternity section and clicked all the boxes. And now she's got maternity jeans and all sorts of accessories and so on.
Yeah, that's super convenient. We started going to the baby maternity sections in all the stores recently and getting pants and shirts and underwear for all of that stuff. But I think that service sounds much more convenient.
Yeah, I think, if you're like me, you'll buy an item of clothing and then you'll be wearing that 20 years from the purchase date, So I tend to take the long view with all of my clothing purchases, but compared to that, the service is obviously going to be more expensive. But then when something comes along like maternity wear, it's really like paying for itself. I think the cost of the service would be less than buying all the stuff. So I recommend that for sure.
I wonder if you can just do it on the short term then. Maybe I'll look into that.
I bet you could pop in there. Absolutely. Have you yourself felt the baby kick yet?
Yeah. It's kind of our nightly routine. we'll have dinner, we'll sit down, watch a movie or something, and then Moe will lay down, and I'll just kind of put my hand on her belly while we're watching something and just wait.
Yeah,
So,
lie in wait.
so I felt quite a few kicks over the past, I'd say maybe like week or two now that we've been doing it.
Yeah, I think right around your time or even a bit before, I felt the first kick. And yeah, we're lying in bed, I think, in the morning when we had just woken up, and she said the baby was active. And it was really early on, I think prior to 20 weeks. So the kick felt from the outside was like, I don't know, did my hand just spasm or what happened here?
Yeah.
But then I noticed like it happened again and again, and I was like, oh wow, that's the real deal. So yeah, everything's trucking along like normal. No new appointments, no new updates, I guess.
No, still a couple weeks for ours.
Yeah, us too. We're at weeks 20 and 27. Something that always kind of blows me away is thinking about the time. And I don't know if you've felt that the pregnancy has gone by quickly or gone by slowly. I feel like it's gone by very slowly.
Yeah, I'm in the slow boat as well. Maybe because I'm eager. I'm more eager.
That makes sense. I'm sure that when we look back on it years from now, it'll seem like it happened in the blink of an eye. But as for right now, living through it, it seems like the change is kind of imperceptible, and we're just kind of like going at a snail's pace through the pregnancy. And it's been surprisingly slow. I thought it would just go by in a flash, but I think there's a lot of things to do and a lot of things to kind of worry about. And I'm trying to organize all that stuff, and then that makes me feel like pretty laden with things to do, and that makes time slow down, I think, for me, when I've got a long list that I'm kind of worried about. I'm like, I gotta get through
I'm
this.
like the opposite. It makes time speed up. I'm just like, oh crap, it's already Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I'm like crawling through time right now.
Well, that's good. You'll get through your list then.
Yeah, it's more time for me. Wonderful. So here's another thing that I wanted to talk about time-wise, which this is mind-blowing to me, but we're going to talk about a classic television show that took place in the future, and that show is The Jetsons. I don't know if you ever watched The Jetsons.
Wow, I wonder how many listeners will know this or have actually seen it. I'm sure everybody's heard of it at some point.
Yeah, it's kind of the companion piece to the Flintstones. The Flintstones was the prehistoric family. The Jetsons was the futuristic family. Yeah. But something very significant happened recently with the Jetsons. First of all, the Jetsons came out in 1962. That was the first season of the Jetsons, was 62.
Okay.
So then, like, obviously, you're making a TV show in 1962, and you're thinking, oh, we need to give this show a futuristic setting. And so let's go 100 years in the future, which is 2062, right?
Boy, they got that wrong.
Yeah, they really missed the boat on 2062. Probably. There's still like a fair amount of time to go, but they've kind of missed it. So the other thing is George Jetson, who's like the dad, he's the patriarch of the family there in the Jetsons. In the 2062 TV show, he's 40 years old. So that means that George Jetson was born in 2022.
Oh, same as our soon-to-be kids.
Yeah, our children will be born in the same year that George Jetson was meant to be born. And if you want to go one layer deeper on this thing, George Jetson's birthday was August 27th, 2022, according to the lore of the Jetsons.
Wow.
Which means that George Jetson would have been conceived 9 months before that, which makes the conception of George Jetson the Thanksgiving weekend 2021, which is something that we all just lived through very recently. That's when George Jetson's parents got busy. He was conceived and then born in 2022.
I hope you're not the only one who's put this together, and maybe somebody else who will be having a kid in August next year thinks, oh, I got to name him George.
George, yeah. If your last name is Jetson, then by all means, you have to fulfill the prophecy and close the loop.
It's not a cartoon show. It was a prophecy.
It was a prophecy. and that's how it will be regarded going forward. But that really blew my mind that, it's the same with Back to the Future. I think the Back to the future was 2015,
Yeah.
if memory serves, and like all the articles came out, this is what they got right, this is what they got wrong. But
Still waiting
now,
for that hoverboard.
still waiting for the hoverboard. For me, that was the main thing. It was the hovering technology in 2015 that was really absent, and that's what made
Yeah.
the difference. Do you remember there was a scene where like a dog was being walked by like a hovering disc with a leash connected to the hovering disc, and
Yeah,
he
I
was
vaguely
walking the
remember
dog
that.
down the road? Like, stuff just doesn't hover. That's what we're really missing.
I mean, we have drones now, but they kind of
Yeah,
don't let them do anything.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Heavily regulated drones is as close we get. But
yeah.
I think even more futuristic though is the Jetsons. Like, everybody lived in the Space Needle. Basically, it was Orbit City. Everybody was flying spaceships everywhere. It was much more, like the household cleaning robot Rosie,
That's
that sort of
true.
stuff.
In
Way
some
more
in some
futuristic.
senses, they may have gotten it right about the future because you never see the ground. You never
Mhm.
see like ocean stuff. Like maybe that's all. Maybe we just messed it up and everybody just went up.
Yeah, maybe all of the like there'll be a moon colony, all this stuff by 2062. Maybe it'll come true. But or yeah, we've ruined the environment, so we just have to live in the stratosphere. Maybe that's how it'll work, and we'll all live in little space needles. Perfect. But
Nice.
I highly doubt it. But
Yeah.
just blew
Yeah.
me away that our kids are going to be born in the same year that George Jetson was born, like the all-time sort of futuristic cartoon. Well, excluding Futurama, naturally.
Oh, of
But
course. Yeah.
yeah, and that's 1,000 years. Like, that's so far away.
You
But
you grew up watching the Jetsons, right?
I mean, I was aware of the Jetsons. Of course, it was on the air 20 years before I was born. But I think I
It was
saw the
never on like
Flintstones.
Nickelodeon for you or anything.
I would have caught the stray episode here and there. I saw the
Oh, okay.
Flintstones a lot more often, for sure. And I
Oh,
think they
yeah.
rebooted the Jetsons in the 80s as well. And there were like made for TV movies and stuff that came out through the 80s and maybe even into the 90s. So I was aware of the Jetsons, but not like a loyal follower.
Yeah, I definitely watched when I was a kid and I
Oh,
caught
yeah.
a lot of it.
Cool. Well, I'm kind of unfamiliar, but that is our claim to the future. Another thing about the future of these kids, and this is not like sci-fi at all, but the kids will be born in 2022, meaning that when the year 2100 rolls around, they'll be in their late 70s. And I think for Japanese life expectancy right now is already late 70s. So you can
Yeah, I'd
say,
say even 80s. I
yeah,
think it's probably the average.
yeah, it's different for men and women, of course, and then the women, I
Yeah.
think, are like solidly well into their 80s. Men are lagging a bit behind, but all the odds indicate that our kids born in 2022 will live to see 2100, which
Hmm.
really is mind-blowing to me because that seems like some real distant future.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about that. It's also crazy to think about that like Moe's grandma is, I think she's like 93 right now. Is to
Mhm.
think about that. We're going to have a kid, then there's going to be 4 generations of them alive at the same time.
It's certainly rarer, and Japan has like this aging population. A very high percentage of the population is like past retirement age. I remember years ago seeing that Okinawa had the highest percentage of 100-year-olds of any similarly sized area on Earth, or any city on Earth.
Wow.
Okinawa had the highest percentage of people over 100. Japanese people traditionally live a very, very long time, and yeah, so you'll wind up with the 4, maybe even getting up into the 5 generation families from time to time. It's a much more common occurrence for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so it's I remember, I don't know if you have anything similar to this from your own life, but when I was a kid, when I was 5 years old, I got t-shirts. I went to school, for the first time, went to kindergarten, and as a 5-year-old, they gave everyone in the class a t-shirt that said class of 2001, and it
I
was
never
like
got that.
oh yeah, it was a blue t-shirt. I remember there were a couple of people looking at a computer screen, like a 80s computer screen, and then on the computer screen on the t-shirt it said class of 2001, which I was. And I remember taking that t-shirt home, and then my mom seeing it, and her, like, similar to how we are right now thinking about 2100 and our kids living to that age. My mom was like, that can't be right, can it? Is it really? And then she kind of added it up, and she was like, yeah, you'll graduate in 2001. And 2001 was the far distant future and blew all of our minds. This was,
Right.
back in 88. But it's still, I guess that never stops. That feeling never really leaves any generation.
I wonder when our kids are maybe like teen level and we tell them about like the 90s, they're
Mhm.
going to think that we're like cavemen.
Yeah, for sure. I have some predictions about what we will say that blows the kids' minds that we did. Number one, I think it'll be the very simple statement: we used to drive cars. I think,
Oh, you think it's going to go that far?
yeah, I think the idea of we used to drive cars will be absolutely mind blowing. I
Well,
think
you are
that,
getting into Jetson territory.
yeah, yeah. I think that driverless cars will come out. They'll just keep gaining ground. They'll be very useful for like Uber services and taxi services. And then they'll be proven to be quite safe. And then governments will say, oh, you know what? Actually, there's a much safer model, and that is the driverless car. So we're going to start banning drivers. And you'll have to, make a transition at some point.
In Japan, I think that would be a great idea. I also think it would be impossible to do here with
Just with the narrow streets and all the...
how narrow and just crappily built some of them are in the cities. Because not to like shit on their construction or anything, I think it's really good. But the way they have to do it sometimes with the water piping for the winter, it creates this weird unevenness that when you're driving over, it kind of pulls and jerks your car. So if you're not driving, then sometimes I think the car would just veer.
Yeah, there'll have to be some firmware updates for the winter. We should say in this region of the country, they build sort of a sprinkler system down the middle of a lot of roads, and then that is how they remove snow from the roads. So as soon as it starts to snow, they crank on the sprinklers, and jets of water are kind of flying out of the middle of the streets, and then that washes the snow into a slush onto the sides of the roads to keep them relatively clear.
Which is great for people walking next to roads.
Yeah, pedestrians, deal with it. Get your
it's
boots on.
It's more of a side umbrella than an overhead umbrella.
Yeah, there may be some. I would say also just the narrowness of the streets and how you occasionally, like we live on a street, for example, that you can only go one way down the street because it's just that narrow, but there's no indication anywhere that it's a one-way street. So two-way traffic is allowed. If you meet somebody, you have to figure it out. Somebody's going to have to back up. Somebody's going to have to get in somebody's driveway, and so on and so forth. And I wonder if this is all being programmed into driverless cars at this point.
Yeah, there's probably like a do not enter like map system that they have built into some of them. Like, oh, no, this road is off limits. I have to go around this way.
Yeah.
At least I assume so. In America, it's much easier. I don't know. Do you know much about if Tesla's used in that way here?
Ooh, no idea. I know they sell Teslas. They have Tesla dealerships.
They're super
in Japan.
popular. I've seen a lot of them, but I don't know if they're using the automated features as much.
Yeah, maybe highway only or something. But yeah, Japanese roads are not made for that. I mean, the little neighborhood roads anyway. Well, that is our look into the future. That was just blowing my mind. So I thought I should address it.
Yeah.
And I guess without further ado, we've had too much ado already. We need to shift this ado to the side, and we need to get into our guest interview.
We're just going to do the do.
We're going to do the ado. We're going to not do the ado, and we're going to talk to Casey. And Casey will set us straight on many, many things regarding parenthood in Japan. So let's get to that.
All right, here we go.
Our guest today is a 17-year resident of Japan, a guy with 12 years experience as a father, and a good friend of mine, Casey Bean. Hello, Casey.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be the first proper father to appear on the podcast.
Yeah, you're a real J-pop. So
I am.
Congratulations.
And at 17 years, maybe an OG J-pop.
Yeah, you can call me the Pod Father. If you want to have me as a recurring guest, you can refer to me as the Pod Father.
And we should say you're the Podfather because you have curated several podcasts in your day.
Yes, well, Justin, this is the elephant in the room, is that you and I used to have a podcast together. And now
Yeah.
this is like in high school when you have a girlfriend and then you break up with her and you go to a party and she's there with her new man.
Yeah.
That's how I feel right now. I'm on your podcast with your new partner,
Yeah, with
and
my
it's a little
Oh
new
awkward.
God. Now it's
super
awkward.
super hot girlfriend, Mark.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm here all by myself. But
Lonely Casey.
You've got Joe though. You're doing good with Joe.
I suppose.
Remember, Joe will hear this, so you better talk him
Yeah.
up.
Don't
For
worry. He's
for
heard.
those who don't know, Joe and Casey have a podcast called Ishikawa Summit to Sea, where they have a lot of banter back and forth like this. So
Yeah. And
Yes,
I would
yes.
say that the only person that rivals Mark in attractiveness is Joe. So we've both done well for ourselves.
that's
Yeah.
true.
But Justin, you left me.
Yeah.
And so, when people get spurned in love, they sometimes lash out. And so you left me when we had one podcast. So I started 2 podcasts to fill the void.
Yeah. So
Compensating.
you've got Ishikawa
Yes.
Summit to See, and what's your second podcast?
The Bean Pod, which is my solo and one true love. Yes.
Okay, good stuff.
Yeah.
So check those out, everybody. And as we said, we brought Casey here because he's the Podfather. He's the OG J-pop. He's got a couple of kids, and he's been living in Japan a long time and parenting for a long time. So we thought we would pepper him with some questions and get his expert take on these things. I think a lot of the questions we had actually revolved around language. And there are a number of things to discuss, like the language you use in the household, if there's ever any pushback against that from the kids, if they like want to, go one direction or the other with the language that you were not envisioning. So how about that? What is the household language?
Yeah, we primarily, well, it's sort of shifting over time, but initially it was like 100% English. And then it started once. So basically, like until the kids got into elementary school, it was like 100% English. They basically never spoke Japanese to us. My wife, who's Japanese, was almost 100% English to the kids. But once they got into elementary school, the Japanese started to sort of take over. And so now, like, I mean, we still primarily speak English in the house, but my wife will speak English to the kids, but they'll reply in Japanese sometimes, and they'll speak Japanese to her more, but they use both. It's very interesting to see, actually, like how and when they switch between languages. Sometimes it'll be like mid-sentence they'll switch.
I was curious when you were saying that it was primarily English before grade school. Was that a difficult transition for them? Did they pick up any Japanese prior to that you noticed? Or was it like, here's Japanese, good luck?
No, because they were going to daycare every day.
Okay.
So they were spending the majority of their day in a Japanese speaking environment.
Okay.
So like when we'd see my wife's parents, their grandparents, they would pretty easily converse in Japanese with the grandparents and with their teachers at daycare. So they had a solid foundation. But like even now, my wife, especially for my younger son, she frequently says like, I'm worried about his Japanese. So they might be a little bit behind in that. My older son is like a total bookworm, so he reads English and Japanese like a lot, so he's probably got more of a grasp than my younger son, who's all about TV and video games.
Well, was it something that you wanted to be strict with in the beginning? Because it seems like in the environment of just being in Japan, they will get the Japanese exposure one way or the other. It's just absolutely bound to happen. And then it seems to me that you would want to really like enforce the English, because otherwise that's the one that they can't get anywhere else. So did you feel kind of strict about that in the beginning, or what were you always kind of like, yeah, well, it'll come and go?
I've sort of gone back and forth in terms of how strict I want to enforce English speaking. Like they never speak Japanese to me. The only thing and sometimes I'm like whatever, and other times if I'm in like a bad mood, I'll be like, would you speak English to each other or something? But I do try to like encourage them to like watch English TV and movies and stuff a lot because they do watch a lot of Japanese stuff. So I try to like balance that to at least get some English input. I can notice now, like my older son is starting to sort of forget some words. Like the other day I was talking to him and he couldn't remember the word pot, like that you use to cook things. And I
Mhm.
think it was just like a brain fart on his part, but it was still like, whoa, you can't remember that like kind of basic word.
Yeah.
So that makes that like gets my my spidey sense up because I'm sort
Yeah.
of always monitoring their linguistic capabilities.
Well, also, I mean, just by default, the level of native English speaking that they'll do in the home before they get to school is going to far, far outweigh any lesson that they would have in school.
Mm.
So then, do you do anything, or did you do anything when they were young, like sort of like English, like lesson wise, like give them a little workbook or anything like that? Or have you tried to supplement kind of their English education in like slightly a more formal way?
We haven't so far. I still like read to them every night, even though
Hmm.
they're getting a bit older. And I've done that like throughout their lives so far. That's like the only pleasure reading I do in my life these days is reading to them. But we've read like all the Harry Potter books, and like we've moved on to like more mature.
Onto
L-
Twilight now.
yeah, like more adultish literature, which is nice. Um, the thing that we've and so like formally, no, we haven't complimented the English that they're getting in school with any sort of formal classes or even like doing it at home. We have started to think about practicing and having them take the Aiken
Hmm.
test because to get in when you're applying to high schools, which is a big thing in Japan, having a high Aiken score can go a long way into getting into a better high school.
Hmm.
So even if your like other grades are not stellar, if you have that high English score, it can sort of make up for other deficiencies. So we bought a few books, but like my wife and I are just not super motivated about doing that. So it's kind of on the back burner.
Are they not just a guaranteed? I guess the top Aiken level is level one, isn't it?
Right.
And are they
Yeah.
not just an automatic shoe in for level one?
No, not yet, because there
Mm.
are some. They have to. There's a spoken component of Aiken,
Hmm.
and the topics of that are like quite heavy for a like a 12-year-old. I think they're like they just don't think that globally yet. It might be
Hmm.
like something about like some problem in the world or something that
Hmm.
12-year-olds and especially 9-year-olds don't really consider too much.
Yeah. One other question back about the schooling. Have you noticed that anything that they do in the Japanese classroom English wise is actually valuable to them, or is it just all like way below where they're at?
So far, it's way below where they're at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even if they have to do like a spelling drill or something, it's something like that they can already spell with no problem, and it's not really
N-
doing them any favors.
no, their spelling is atrocious. So
Oh, okay.
that's like in terms of like grammar and vocabulary and that level, it's all like much below where they're at. But
Hmm.
that's the good thing. Is like the sort of the rote practice that's prevalent in Japanese school of just like writing the same thing over and over again. That's like the niche that my kids need
Hmm.
to improve their English skill. So that's the probably the one positive of the level so far.
Mark, do you want to fire off any of these questions?
Yeah, I was curious, kind of going back to maybe like pre-school days, like daycare and stuff. When you were, I assume that you were thinking about English a lot in those days. Were you going out and buying like English specific, like kids' books and that kind of like English specific, like toys for them?
Yeah, we mostly books. We have a pretty huge library of English books here, and we used to have more, but we've sort of offloaded all of the like real like Brown Bear that level
Oh, yeah.
books. We don't have those anymore, but yeah, that we had. I mean, we got so many books from people like family members and friends would send us books. We'd buy books when we went back to the States. As far as toys, you mean toys that like speak and things like that?
Yeah, like I was looking at a couple of those, like I forget what they're called, but they have just like sounds and lights,
Mm,
and kids pop them, and it's like, hey, this is a cow. This is what a cow does, and that kind of thing.
yeah. Oh, I think we probably had something like that.
Because I know like the sounds that come out of those are typically different in the US versus here.
Yeah. I mean, that's right in the daycare wheelhouse. They'll learn
Yeah,
all the Japanese animal sounds there, and you can cover the English versions at home.
gotcha.
But yeah, it's always my focus has always been like English books, English DVDs, that
Hmm.
sort of thing.
What about the full immersion experience? I know you've gone home with your kids several times to visit the family, but have
Mhm.
you ever thought about sending them to the U.S. for a year of school, or even you yourself moving back to the U.S. to just get them into the English environment for a stretch of time?
Yeah, I do more than wanting them to experience like American school. I want them to learn more about American culture. That would be the prime reason for sending them back for an extended period. I think probably they're getting a better education in Japan than they would at in the States at this point.
Hmm.
But I would love to send them back for 6 months or a year where they can just be in it for a really extended period, especially now because we haven't been able to go home for a couple years. So, I do want them to do that at some point. I don't know about moving the whole family back is probably a stretch unless there was a very lucrative situation waiting for me over there. But yeah, it's definitely something I want to, even if it's just like sending them back for the summer or something.
Is that a possibility then?
Yeah, definitely. But like we're getting to the point now where like my older son like wants to hang out with his friends, and like if I say like you're gonna go stay with your grandmother for, you know, 2 months in the summer, he might balk at that at this point.
Sounds like a
So
punishment.
yeah, yeah. So we'll see. It's not even on the table right yet. So because of
Um,
coronavirus.
Well, that might be our language chunk. But what if we go back further in time for Casey? It's going to be the future for me and Mark coming soon. But
Mhm.
an interesting thing about you and your kids, Casey, that I just learned not too long ago, actually, is that you went with your wife's family name for your two sons' family name. So they have a Japanese last name. And
Mhm.
what was that decision like? Was that just for practical purposes, or and was it easy to do to just choose that name, or has it caused any confusion or complications anywhere?
I don't even remember our thought process clearly, but like I know some people are very have strong feelings about like maintaining their last name and the kids having their last name. For me, I don't care. So it was just like the path of least resistance was give them my wife's last name. Then we don't have to, you know, go to like a court and provide documentation or anything like that. And there probably was an element of it that it was just like for the kids growing up, just having a Japanese last name might be easier.
I was curious how this related to like your wife's Koseki and stuff. Are you, because if you're the same as me and probably Justin, then you're just like an add-on to their family
Hmm.
Koseki, which is kind of like the family registry.
Yeah,
Would the
I think
kids fall under her then, being the same last name?
I think when we built this house and registered as residents of the town we live in, I think I started my own koseki.
Oh, really?
And I think we're all on that, but I think my wife is still on her parents'
Oh,
koseki as well. So I don't remember having any like huge issues with that.
oh, okay.
But I will say the cool thing is, and this is one thing that I'm like really happy that my kids have is on their Japanese passports they have their fully Japanese name, but on their American passports, when I registered them as U.S. citizens and got their social security number in their passport, we put my last name, and we
Oh,
gave
okay.
them my wife's. They both have my wife's last name as their middle name, so they have
Hmm.
like two completely independent identities.
That's something I was considering too, and not sure if it was even possible, but it sounds
It
like it's the
is.
norm, kind of. Because I've heard of a
Yeah.
couple other people who've done that as well.
So I mean, part of it is sort of like James Bond style. Like they have like two legit different identities that they can use.
Nice.
And I think also because technically, like when they become adults, they're supposed to choose one nationality. But I think it's like a gray area. But there you can sort of just maintain both nationalities, and I feel like it'll be easier if the names are completely separate.
Hmm.
That's just speculation on my part, but
I've heard a bit about that. That if you were ever to, say work for the government or, join the military or something, then they might learn about your secret dual citizenship. But on paper, Japan doesn't allow dual citizenship, but also they can't really, like, one country. I've heard this. Somebody will have to verify it, but I've heard that one country can't just ask another country, like, give us a list of your citizens, and that's
Right.
not something that countries typically do back and forth. So then Japan would never know, and the United States would never know. Like, they couldn't verify it either way. So yeah, you can just kind of under the radar, just be sure you're showing the right passport to the right immigration official at the right time, and you can maintain both. But it's a little bit off the books.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say there does seem to be a sort of like don't ask, don't tell attitude going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a friend in Seattle. I think she got married, and in that registration process, the Japanese government said, "Okay, pick one," and she went with U.S.
Yeah, there is like on the Japanese passport renewal form, there is like a box that asks, do you have any other nationalities, or do you hold any other passports or something like that? And I don't know, like if you just don't check it, if you're skirting any laws or anything like that.
Probably.
But yeah.
I've read that it's never been enforced in like again, this is just my memory of hearing this and that through the news, but I've heard that it's never been enforced. Like no one's ever gone to jail for being a dual citizen.
Right.
And if I had to guess, every decision that Japan makes is about increasing population, be it birth rates or allowing more foreign like specialized workers or whatever. Dual citizenship is kind of a no-brainer to legalize, to then maintain some of your population who would have otherwise chosen a different citizenship because they were forced to choose. So if you could allow dual, then you might as well. And you've got like, I don't know how many dozens or, 100 or more examples around the rest of the world of countries who allow it, and it's not a problem. So it seems like, 5-10 years from now, the government might just hop on board and say, oh yeah, it's fine, be a dual. It'll keep our population numbers up by a fraction of a percent, and that's good for us.
And it's also like a pretty dynamic portion of the population who's in a lot of cases probably bilingual and bicultural. So they're an asset to the population, I would think.
Yeah. So that's my prediction anyway, is that they'll want to hold on to those people.
I wanted to go back a little bit. That's all right.
Yeah.
You've been here 17 years about, right? And how has your Japanese level been in that time from when you got here until you had kids, I guess?
I didn't speak any Japanese when I arrived, and I just started studying, and I've been studying on and off, the whole time. Just in terms of like JLPT level, I passed the level 2 a couple years ago, and I've failed the level 1 like 4 times. So,
oh man.
yeah, I'm plateaued right between the 1 and the 2 there. But I'm like basically I can sort of like hold my own in most situations. There's plenty of stuff that I still boggles my mind.
Do you remember where you were Japanese wise when your first child was born?
No.
Like JLPT, you hadn't passed the 2 at that point anyway.
No. And I don't even what I think I passed the 3. So I was probably around like the level 3. I remember learning a lot of like new, very birth specific vocabulary around that time. But I definitely wasn't as comfortable speaking Japanese as I am now. Not that I'm super comfortable now. I don't actually use Japanese that much, but
you know what's going
I no
on.
longer. Yeah, I don't like panic when I have to speak Japanese at this point.
Like me.
Even if it's on the phone.
Yeah.
Oh God, no, that's the worst.
I know.
So then most of the time then when your kids were growing up, and I guess even now at this point, they're not really translators for you much.
No, they're not. That's funny because I will if I'm in a situation where there's someone speaking Japanese or I'm trying to convey something in Japanese, and I'll ask my son like, what did that person just say? My older son is like semi useful in that situation, but again, like a lot of the times if it's something that I don't understand, like just the nature of the conversation is means like my 12-year-old son is also not going to understand what's
Mhm.
going on. We have
Right.
about the same level of knowledge
Right.
when it
That
comes to
makes sense.
Japanese.
Speaking of the kids, and sort of, the dual citizenship and being bilingual and so on, that's a big part of being what the Japanese call half or hafu,
Yes,
and it's
yes.
kind of
Hafu.
the Japanese word for mixed race. They go
Mhm,
right in for the English word in katakana haf.
mhm.
But this rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and I was wondering about your take on the word half, Casey.
Yeah, I had the sort of like white man's instinct to be offended by it,
Hmm.
but have you watched the documentary Half? Have
No, I
you
haven't.
No.
seen that? Oh, it's really good. Check it out. It's on either like Amazon or Netflix or something. It's a really insightful documentary about
Is it in English or in Japanese?
it's in both,
Oh, okay.
if I recall, because it's people who are half Japanese, half something else that have grown up in Japan and sort of identify as well. It's all about like how they identify themselves, but it was just really interesting to hear their experience and see some of the things that they've grown up, experiencing. And I've learned that actual people who are half multicultural, whatever, half Japanese, half American, that like a lot of them actually sort of embrace the term. They don't have this like loaded, like it's some kind of racist term or something like that. So I sort of remove myself from the conversation in terms of whether that term is offensive or not.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't heard
Yeah.
too many people who use that term, I guess, refer to it in a negative way or
Mhm.
those people in a negative way. But I know that there's some cases where bullying occurs and that comes up.
Yeah, I'm always like waiting for my kids to come home from school, like in tears, because they've experienced some sort of teasing or bullying based on them not being 100% Japanese. But I guess it's reassuring, like kids aren't as horrible as I sort of imagined they would be, and like all the kids that my kids go to school with have known them, forever. So
Mm.
ha- the fact that they're not 100% Japanese is no longer a big deal for
Are
them.
they the only ones in their class who are considered half or multicultural?
I think so. I
Because
think
you guys
so.
are out in the Inaka, same as me, where there's not
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
foreigners.
I'm pretty sure at their elementary school, they're the only two. That's another thing though. There's two of them. They're the
Mm.
brothers, so there's some sort of like moral support there, I guess.
Mm.
Um, I haven't really talked to them about their own sense of identity, whether or not they think about the fact that they're half Japanese, half American.
It's the kind of thing that anyone, I mean, the people themselves, like your sons who are actually from two different cultures or mixed race, or if you're a foreigner here or something, any of us can be primed to take it the wrong way. And
Hmm.
there was my wife has given me a few pamphlets recently. We're sort of getting reinterested in the features of Kanazawa, like in terms of the
Hmm.
public services and the things that are available to do, just because you've got a kid and your kid will need to make use of some of these services or visit some of these places. So there are English pamphlets that describe these things, and we've recently been getting a few of those. And one of them was called, it's in English, so it's obviously targeted toward foreigners in Kanazawa, and the name of it was "You Too Are a Citizen of Kanazawa." And like that title, it's right on the edge,
Right.
because my immediate reaction was like, whoa, whoa, who said I'm not a citizen of Kanazawa?
Right.
It's like
Right.
kind of half confrontational, but you can also see it coming from a really sweet, supportive place of like, don't let anybody shut you out. You're a citizen as well. So it depends on how you're going to take it. And I feel like half might be one of those terms, and a lot of the goodwill could also rub you the wrong way, or something that rubs you the wrong way, you could just
Mm.
decide to take it as goodwill. So maybe it's more about the attitude of the person experiencing it.
Yeah. In that documentary, some of them are like lobbying for a new term. I can't remember what it was, but it was like multicultural or something like that.
Yeah. How do you guys balance like decision making in the house and like disciplinary actions and those kind of things? Like, I don't know if this is relative to being in Japan or not, but just maybe how does your house handle it?
Generally, I mean, we don't need to punish our kids that often. They're both well behaved for the most part. But I think, I mean, we don't really have any like set rules. The important thing is just being on the same page with each other when you're doling out, you know, punishment.
Do you ever run into something that sort of you need to make a decision about what the kid is going to do, and then the two of you parents want to go opposite directions? And is there like, I guess there's no set method for resolving that kind of thing. It's more on a case by case basis. But do you have any experience with that or any words of wisdom?
No.
Okay.
There's nothing. I mean, I guess it's just a sort of indicator of my relationship with my wife, but like we're generally on the same page when it comes to just handling things like that. So my advice would be, yeah, just make sure you're in agreement, that you're both presenting the same argument to your children, so the children understand clearly like what the boundaries are. You know, there aren't too many things between my wife and I where we have like philosophical differences. The only one I can think of is like, you know, my kids have to walk to school every day, and it's like 2 kilometers, and there will be mornings where it's like a typhoon outside, and it's like thunder and lightning and wind and rain, and I'll be like, maybe we can give the kids a ride today, and she's like, no, they're walking to school. So she's like, and
Wow.
actually I can get behind that. I don't even feel like a huge amount of disagreement with her. I think it's great that they walk to school, and they do live very comfortable lives. If the worst thing they have to do is walk to school in the rain, then, you know, they should do it to have some sense of, you know, oppression in their lives.
Mhm.
But that's the only thing where like she's got a very firm belief in that practice, and I'm a little bit less rigid about it. Like I'd be willing to drive them once in a while.
Yeah, I
You
don't see
old
many
softy.
parents
I know.
driving their kids. I live like right behind a school, and every morning and afternoon I'll see these kids walking to and from in their shorts
Mhm.
in whatever weather it is,
Yeah.
snow or rain.
Yeah.
So there's not
I
much
was,
sympathy here in general.
Yeah,
I was
but that's
always
one of
blown
the
away by that. Just one time years ago, I had a student who I taught. He had been to the U.S. He was raised in the U.S. and he was 6 years old. He was a Japanese kid, and then he came back to Japan. So he was fluent in English at a 6-year-old's level. And one time on my day off, I was walking across the crosswalk downtown in the busiest part of town, and he crossed opposite by himself on the crosswalk.
Mhm.
And I was like, hey, his name was Sadasuke. I was like, Sadasuke, how are you? And he was like, oh, I'm fine. And I was like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going home. I was like, where's your house? And he just pointed in the direction. I was like, I guess this is fine. I'll see you later. But this is like, you know, tall buildings on either side, traffic
Mhm.
whizzing around. And there's like a 6-year-old, you know, basically with a briefcase and his like suit and tie. And he's just doing his daily commute. And that blew my mind. But that's Japan. You know, it's like Leave It to Beaver era United States, where the kids kind of just come and go and take care of their own business.
I know that's something that's been hard for me to get used to. Like I'm 100% supportive of it. Like it's awesome that they put this level of responsibility on kids, to like they'll be like the older kid who's leading the pack to school, and from a very young age they have this sense of independence and responsibility, which I think is awesome. It's like not like that in America anymore, but it freaks me out big time. Like I just
Mhm.
worry about like cars running them over, and you know they horse around on the sidewalk next to a busy road, and I just like cross my fingers that they'll make it to like junior high school
Mhm.
without incident, and I can maybe breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah, going into this whole thing, I kind of have those fears already, and I
Hmm.
feel like I'm going to be a little bit helicopter parenty, but I hope not.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll
I
see.
am definitely, and like when I see other people sort of um like when you go to Costco and people like leave their kid in the wagon
Oh
while
my
they're
god, it just
while they're
drives
like
me nuts.
getting their hot dog, and there's like a 3-year-old just like standing up on the seat towering 4 feet above a concrete floor, and I'm just like I want to like grab the kid and like sit them down or something. I get very uneasy when I see that sort of thing, but like it's just the way they do it here.
I have a kind of similar to that. Another thing that kind of drives me crazy, I guess in Costco, but it's pretty much everywhere. You go in and you'll see a parent just holding a newborn in one arm and just shopping with the other, like a
Mhm.
basket and everything else, and this head just like flopping around. I'm like, you don't have a stroller? You can't get a stroller? They have them at the front of the store.
Yeah. You'll be there soon enough, Mark.
I guess so. I guess it's one of those things. I'm
Yeah.
not there yet.
Yeah.
Well, what about a little bit of a gear shift here? But I know that I personally, right now, feel busy all of the time, and I have
Mm.
0 kids. And here's Casey with his 2 kids, and Casey and I have kind of similar lives, like similar work and that sort of thing. So, what do you do in terms of like cordoning off your personal time, or is your personal time just a thing of the past? Like, how do you find chances to relax like you want to?
Yeah. It's hard, especially when the kids are really young and you need to sort of monitor them constantly, and they rely on you for everything. Basically you don't have much personal time uh during that stage of life. Now my kids are a bit older and like they sleep later. They can feed themselves and wipe their own butts and stuff, which is cool. And like they wake up before my wife and I now, so it's sort of much easier these days, and it's easier to get out and do things myself. So, but yeah, I mean the first like 5-6 years is I it's like somebody took one of those Men in Black like mind erasers to my brain. I don't have a lot of recollection of like what my life was like before that, nor like what happened during those interceding years. It's just kind of a blur.
I do remember you were a big time like wake up at whatever time, 4:35 in the morning or something, and then that was when no one was up and about yet,
Mm,
and that was prime Casey time. If I
that
can
is,
refresh your memory of your your life from a few years ago.
yeah. I
But
mean, that's still kind of what I do,
uh-huh.
except now everybody's awake at that time
Hmm.
because they leave the house at like 7 a.m. to walk to school.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but yeah, and if you're like a night owl, you can probably snag some time then. But I don't like to stay up very late. So yeah,
Yeah.
I've basically sacrificed my perfect life for children, Justin and Mark.
Okay. Oh, that explains it. All right. Good. Well, that is our list of questions. Mark, do you have anything you want to add on here? Any other avenue you want to go down?
No, that covered pretty much everything that I was curious about at this point.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Now
we'll
we
have you
know.
on in the future after we have kids and you can help us more.
Yeah, I'd love to come back anytime. Bestow my wisdom.
Yeah, I already feel like I know everything after
Yeah,
our.
you've been my co-pilot, Justin, in fatherhood.
Yeah, Justin is my co-pilot. That
Yes.
needs to be a bumper sticker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Casey. We appreciate all the insights, and
Yeah,
yeah, we will certainly have you back.
if you want to take some time and let people know where they can reach you and what you have going on right now, this is your time.
All right. I'm like pretty active on Twitter. I'm at tbeanpod on Twitter, and I put lots of nice pictures and play some cover tunes. Put some videos up of that, and then I've got my podcast, The Bean Pod, which is available on like Apple and some other services. And then yes, with our friend Joe, I also make the Ishikawa Summit to Sea podcast. So please check all of those things out.
Sweet. And if you want to deep dive on Casey, you can go to the what was the blog called that you did when you built
Oh,
your house?
gaijinhouse.wordpress.com.
Oh, the long dead blog. But that's pretty interesting about home building in Japan, especially from the foreigner's perspective, where we kind of know nothing about the system here. But that's
Yeah,
still
it's
a good
very,
read.
very extensive.
Well, thanks a lot. And
All right,
hey,
thanks, guys.
take it easy. We'll see you later.
And we're back.
Yeah, let's carry on with the spirit of the interview and go right into our segment called My Question for You Is.
Let's
It's
do it.
more question answer time. I've got a question this week for Mark. The question is, as an expectant father, where are you on the scale of excitement to anxiety? Is one of those two feelings overriding the other one? Are they out there in equal measure, or what do you say?
Oh man, I would say they're both out there in equal measure, equally high. I think I'm pretty excited overall, but in general, I have kind of high anxiety issues. And so this kind of peaks that anxiety especially as we get closer and I start worrying, like, how am I going to keep this thing alive? It's kind of like the biggest thought in my head at the moment. But just in general, like, how am I going to afford this? How am I going to manage life around this thing? And like, how are we going to manage English and these thoughts? So anxiety and excitement are equally up there. How about you?
In general, I don't go too far in either direction. Like, I'm more even keeled, like, emotion wise. I don't get too excited about things. I don't get too anxious about things either. And so I would say that I have both of these, but neither of them are kind of, overriding or overpowering. And maybe they're about, I don't know. I don't know if I've had any real anxiety. I mean, it's all things that need to be solved, but I just kind of look at it objectively. Like, the situations will arise and then I will solve them, and then like, it kind of reminds me of like your wedding day. There's a lot of planning to do and a lot of decisions to be made, but then eventually the day does come and then it just goes into the past. Like, can you imagine the worst would be like you're planning for a wedding that never happens because there are unlimited decisions to make and you just need it to actually happen to stop your decision making process. And so the baby will be born. Eventually the baby will be, out
pragmatic.
of the crib. Yeah. Like, into, out of the crib into its own bed. It'll be potty trained. It'll be in school. All of these things will happen. The decisions will have to be made. And then I'll get through them all as they come up. So that keeps me from being too anxious about it, just knowing that it'll all be over with, like, a decision will occur. And I guess it's so that would put me more on the side of excitement then.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't have too much anxiety about it. And the excitement is also, for me, felt in ways of like sort of accumulating stuff. We got a stroller just yesterday. So
nice.
That's another, like, it's another little real thing that we have that's making this whole thing, seem more real to us, and another cause for a little bit of excitement.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna be getting one here pretty soon. It seems early to buy one, but holidays and store sales as they are, it's too good of an opportunity not to buy one.
Yeah, gotta jump on it.
And I got one. I think I'm gonna get one of those. That's not to go too much off topic, but I think this is pretty interesting because you don't see this a lot in Japan. But it's a stroller that comes with a car seat and a car seat base for the car. So you can just have this separate car seat that pops out of the car, goes straight into the stroller, and you never have to like pick the baby up out of it, wake them up, put them in, and kind of deal with that. It's kind of a much easier system. And I'm always surprised I don't see this more in Japan.
Yeah, it's especially for a country that's really big on gadgetry. It seems like a nice little combination of features into a new gadgety kind of a thing. But I don't know if I've seen it either. We scoured Amazon, when we were making the baby registry, and I don't think I saw anything like that when I was looking through the general car seat selection.
No, there's not a single one. I had to, you can search out the product and then you can find the products that work together. And I think it's a brand called Joey, and they sell a car seat with a base. And then you can buy their separate stroller that kind of hooks up with it. And that's the only one I've seen here.
This reminds me, we should also mention Amazon a bit more and go into it. I think we have to issue our first official J-Pops retraction, and that is us singing the praises of Amazon as the sort of one-stop shop for all your baby registry needs across international boundaries, and it's all seamless and easy. My wife and I finally got our Amazon together, finalized it, sent off the link, and then no one in the United States could successfully purchase anything from our amazon.co.jp baby registry. They could see
Right.
it through the link, they could select items, and then when they got to the final stage of trying to pay for them, it said username not found, and the whole situation got all scrambled. So the solution that we're workshopping right now is, it seems like for your purchasers outside of Japan, if you made a Amazon Japan baby registry, those purchasers outside of this country would have to make an amazon.co.jp account, which is a little bit of legwork. It's not too difficult, but they will have to create an account on this like mirrored foreign version of Amazon.
Yeah,
And they can do it in English. They can put in, as you said, you told me earlier, they can put in their US phone number, so there shouldn't be any big issues there.
Yeah,
But they will
you
have
can
to
use the same information you use. I think it's just the way they have to set up their business operating in different countries. They
Mhm.
have to be separate entities. So whatever you use in US doesn't automatically carry over to Japan or UK or Australia or any of those. They're all separate stores.
Yeah. So Amazon is probably still the only way and the best way to get your baby registry together. But if you've made it on the co.jp, you'll have to have everyone have an account on co.jp. So they'll have to do that extra legwork. So we'll just see who wants it most.
Yeah, and I want to make a clear point. If you're living in Japan making a registry, you should use the co.jp and not the com.
Mhm.
If you make one on the com and expect people to send it over here, that's going to be really expensive shipping for them. So
Yeah.
have them go through the slight inconvenience of registering for the co.jp. Just make sure you tell them beforehand.
Good call. All right. So we've clarified. I feel better about that.
Good. And you've got some Japanese for us today, don't you?
Yes, sir. It is Japanese of the day. This is a pretty simple word, but it's kind of funny to me. The word for baby in Japanese is akachan. This is like the most commonly used word for baby. Mark, you must have come across akachan in your
Oh,
lengthy
yeah.
study of Japan and
Yeah.
Japanese. And yeah, can you tell us aka? What's the meaning of aka?
From my basic understanding, it's red.
Yeah, it is purely and simply the color red. And then chan, the CHAN at the end, it's what you would add to a name to make it sound a little cute. So, your friends would call you Mark, but if there were a little kid named Mark, you might call him Mark Chan, or your wife might call you Mark Chan as a cutesy little nickname.
She has never called me that.
Well, you're not there yet. Someday you'll get that familiarity.
She does say Mark-san sometimes.
Oh, Mark's son. Well, very
Yeah.
professional.
I'm older.
That makes sense. So aka means red. Chan means like a cutesy little ending to a name. So it's like little red or little reddy or something.
What's up, little red?
What's up, little red? And it's purely and simply because babies look red, like when they come out. They're red. And so I don't know if that's like factually accurate for all babies, but it's kind of the image of newborn baby looks red. So they called it like little red, and then that became the word for baby. But it's not only akachan. Akachan is the most commonly used word for baby, I would say, but there are variations on it. In the old days, like even maybe before like our grandparents' generation, were our grandparents Japanese, they might have said akago, and that go is similar to ko, which is, just means child. So even in the old days, over 100 years ago, it was still like red child is what they called a baby, essentially, akago. And there's another one, a third one that's also based around aka, and it's akambo. Akambo is another word for baby. It's got aka right in there, so red is still there. Bo is a word that is used for monks, like obosan. And obosan is, when you would go to I don't know if it's a temple or a shrine or maybe both, but the obosan would be a monk that works there.
Interesting. I've never heard that term before.
Yeah, I am not very familiar with it, but my wife told me that she thinks that the aka is red, and then the monk, the bo part of akambo, is because monks are typically bald. like shaved heads. And so
Red
you've got
Baldy.
yeah, Red Baldy, this little baby with no hair. He looks like a little monk and he's red. So they would call him Akambol. And
Oh, that's
sometimes Bol can be added as another little cutesy ending to somebody's name. So those are your
I've
options.
never heard Bo, but I believe you.
Yeah. I think if someone were named like imagine you've got someone named Akihito, then they might call him like Akibo and just take the first part of his name and put Bo at the end of the name. It's sometimes used for boys. It's a little bit in the family of like Chan and Kun.
Right.
Bo goes on that list. It's basically like a cutesy version of San, like
Oh,
Mark
gotcha.
San. So
Gotcha.
somebody might call you Mark Bo or Ma Bo or something like that. I don't know.
When we were renovating our house, the main contractor, like the owner of the company, would call me Markun. He wouldn't even say
Yeah.
Mark and Kun. It would just be
Yeah.
Markun. And my wife tried to correct him, but he would just keep going. He just didn't care.
Yeah. I get a lot like just speaking of names and like how you might hear a foreign name and then try to slot it into however your country does names. I think that's a natural thing to do, but people are familiar with the word hill. My last name is Whitting Hill, and so I very frequently get Whitting and Hill as two separate words, both capitalized.
Oh.
So they think that I've got like maybe that's my whole name is first name Whitting, last name Hill. Or maybe they think Justin Whitting Hill are three names, but I receive a lot of emails that say like Mr. and then two names at the end, Whitting and Hill separated. So yeah, it's hard. Which Hill is also in a lot of building names. Like we used to live in a building called Green Hills Building. And so like hill, like as this kind of like nice image of like the rolling countryside, and it shows up from time to time in a business name or building name. So I think that throws people as well. They're seeing the hill and thinking, well, that must be a word.
I wonder if this has to do with because they're reading it in katakana first and then trying to type for you in English. And since there's no spaces in katakana, they would just naturally assume like, oh, why would somebody be Whitting Hill? It would be Whitting Hill.
Yeah, which they can. Sometimes they put that dot in between two katakana words, but sometimes it is what we would have as two or three words then get fused into one katakana word. So a lot of confusion. To me, katakana is like if you take a high definition recording of some song and then you play it through your cell phone speaker and record that. You can never get that resultant recording back to its original high definition version.
It's the best description of katakana.
Yeah. Katakana is like putting I don't know, an 8K
the worst
video
game of telephone.
Yeah. It's like you've got a high definition movie and you've run it through a Super Nintendo, and then you see the Super Nintendo version. It's a bit blockier. Some sounds have been fused and shortened and so on.
If this is possible, I want to see this.
Yeah,
now that you say this,
I'm going to fire up my Famicom, see what I can do.
I kind of want to watch The Matrix like this.
Oh my God. Perfect. But I should say that in reverse, there are things, of course, in English that we simply cannot differentiate that come from the Japanese, like that little oo sound that sometimes gets combined with an o sound that essentially lengthens the o. So back to our vocab of the day, akambol is actually a-ka-n-bo-u, and it's got that oo. So for the Japanese, they would lengthen it to bol instead of bo, and that sort of lengthening is not something we recognize in English that much. So it's very hard to differentiate between one and the other.
Yeah. That's true.
So yeah, it works both ways. Sometimes the English can't handle or process the Japanese. Sometimes the Japanese can't handle or process the English. It's just like they're kind of askew.
Well, I think that wraps us up for the day. I think we're about out of
That'll
time here. So thank you everyone for listening. Hope this week's episode was informative and interesting. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us either on Twitter at jpopspodcast or by email at info@thejpops.com.
And we'd like to thank Casey for joining us and sharing his insight with us. If you'd like to hear more from him, you can find him podcasting in two places, the Bean Pod and Ishikawa Summit 2C. You can also find him on Twitter at TBeanPod.
Thank you again, and have a good one.
See you next time.